At the table, Scott Jennings, Jemele Hill, Jose Antonio Vargas, Betsy McCoy, and Ellie Honig. Americans with different perspectives aren't talking to each other, but here they do. Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's get right to what America's talking about. Reversing course, strategy shift, turning the page, whatever you want to call it. The White House just made a sharp U-turn on one of the biggest policy priorities of President Trump's second term, immigration enforcement. And today we heard directly from Trump's border czar as he takes over operations in Minnesota. So here are the major headlines. Tom Homan has now ordered federal authorities to work on an eventual drawdown plan in the state. So what does that look like? Well, Homan says it will mean more targeted operations and that agents are going to focus on working in jails and prisons and less on the street. Now, for weeks, the Trump administration has been grappling with intense backlash following 2 deadly ICE shootings in Minneapolis. The new plan marks a significant change in its approach to immigration enforcement and in tone.
We will remain in Minneapolis forever.
When the violence decreases, we can draw down those resources.
This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism.
As a career law enforcement officer, we'll let investigation roll out.
The suspect put himself in that situation.
I don't want to see anybody die, even the people we're looking for.
Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, they instead choose violence.
Bottom line is you can't fix problems if you don't have discussions.
Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do.
Nothing's ever perfect, and anything can be improved on.
To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties.
They're trying to do it with professionalism. If they don't, they'll be dealt with.
Gas is coming! Gas on film! Gas on film!
I didn't come to Minnesota for photo ops or headlines.
Jose Antonio Vargas joins us. He's the author of Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Jose, we rarely see things like this coming from the Trump administration, but it is important and significant because it's clearly a recognition that the backlash has reached the White House and they don't think that they can weather this storm.
And I have to say, the credit to me really goes to all the people in Minnesota. All the protesting that we saw of all races and colors, Republican, Democrat, Independent, coming together and saying, this is not what Minnesota is about, and we don't want ICE here. I think it's amazing, by the way. If you're not reading the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, please read it, contribute, because the local reporting happening on the ground.
Work,
My friend Steve Grove is now the CEO there, and they've done an incredible job really making sure that we're seeing what's happening community by community, neighbor by neighbor. But I have to say, what does it look like? To me, look, what President Trump is good at is looking at the optics. You know, it would be an amazing optic. Can we actually find a solution to immigration rather than keeping throwing, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars trying to do what we're doing that doesn't make any sense? Poll after poll has now shown that the majority of the public doesn't agree with what ICE is doing. What does the solution actually look like?
And I'll just say, look, Tom Homan is no immigration softie. He is a hardliner, okay, people? This is not somebody who is like trying to do something different from the objective that Trump wants. But Ellie, it strikes me what he laid out today is common sense. It's something that could have potentially been worked out from the beginning if there had been an attempt to. And it also rolls back the most aggressive forms of ICE enforcement, the roving patrols, potentially. All right, we'll see what happens. The roving patrols, the stop and show me your papers, the going after people, you know, as they're dropping off their kids at school. Those are the things that raised constitutional questions, that raised morality questions, frankly.
Today was a good day. I'm not saying it's over. I'm not saying it's solved. I'm not saying we're in the clear, but whichever side of this you're on, this was a good day. This was a good step by Tom Homan. And to your point, Jose, and I've been saying on this show, Abby, not everything has a legal lawsuit-based solution. The lawsuits have failed, but to your point, sometimes something demands a political solution. This is the way our politics are supposed to work, right? There's an outrage that comes from the streets, that comes from politicians on both sides of the aisle, and eventually the White House responds. I
don't buy it.
Well, hang on. The main points that Tom Homan made today that are good things are we're going, and we'll see if they follow up, we'll hold them to it, but we're going to focus on the violent offenders. We're going to focus on people who are in prisons and jails. We're not going to go door to door. We're not going to set up checkpoints. We're not going to do those things that are on the borderline of constitutionality or over the line of being unconstitutional. What I think everyone can agree on, right, even if you're, what you do, Jose, Scott, where you're coming from, is that it's worth prioritizing going after not just people who are here illegally, but people who are here illegally and have committed other crimes. And if there's agreement and consent on that between the state and the feds, good. That's a good thing.
Well, I like the fact that you're invoking the United States Constitution because it clearly says that immigration law is a federal issue and that individual states, whether it's Minnesota or any other state, cannot simply say, we're not part of the United States, we're not going to follow this law. All throughout American history, states have tried that, starting with 1798. And then again, the Supreme Court has said, no, an individual state can't decide they're not going to abide by federal law. Florida can't decide its residents aren't going to pay income taxes anymore.
Where are you getting that Minnesota is not abiding by federal law?
They're not abiding by federal law because the federal law says that immigration is a policy that belongs to the president and to the Congress.
But how are they violating federal law?
Because they are impeding the enforcement.
How are they doing that?
Oh, with these protests. That, for example,
are you talking about the state, or are you talking about individuals who are going out?
No, I'm talking about the state. I'm talking about the state because Minnesota, like Connecticut, like New York, like several others, have done everything they can to impede their law enforcement, not just from assisting, but even cooperating. For example,
there's nothing in federal law that says that local law enforcement has to cooperate with.
Well, yes, because right now,
ICE,
let me finish it. ICE has warrants for 270 people in Minnesota jails, and Minnesota refused to hand them over. That is a violation of federal law.
This is why today was progress, because ideally, and I've done this, okay, I've been with the state, I've been with the feds, I've worked across the aisle. If you want to do this right and efficiently, then yes, the state will work with the feds. A lot of states work with the feds. A lot of states share information with the feds, but they don't have to. I don't think it's good policy, but the law does not require the states to turn over information to the feds. If you're doing this in the real world, the way to do it efficiently and effectively is cooperatively, and this was a step towards that.
But how is it progress, though, if there can't be progress without justice? So where's the justice when we don't even know or have the names of the officers who potentially...
Yes. Look, that's a separate question. I agree.
Yeah, but so, look, was it a step? I guess, if you want to read it that way. To me, a real step is we need to know who the officers were, and we need to know what kind of disciplinary action and or criminal action they will face for the death of Alex Preddy. Until we know that, then to me, all of this talk about how they're going to change doesn't matter. Because... honestly, hearing him talk about what the directives were and how they're changing, the original directives were wrong. They should have never been in place anyway. This level of aggressiveness on these people, and I hope that Americans, not just those in Minneapolis, and you alluded to this, I hope everybody everywhere, because sometimes with this barrage and constant chaos that we are confronted with, people feel overwhelmed, they feel hopeless, and I hope this is an indication and a signal to them that your voice still matters, because there's so much happening in our news cycle where people don't feel that way.
Let me just play, this is from Caitlin Dickerson. She's one of the foremost experts in how federal immigration works. This is how she's talking about what ICE enforcement used to look like. Listen.
What ICE agents did historically is that they would identify someone they wanted to arrest, do lots of work at a desk on a computer before they ever pursued this person to confirm their identity, to confirm they had no claim to legal status in the United States. Once that work was done, they would often go to the person's house at 5 or 6 in the morning, knock on the door, and try to take them into custody, often while other relatives are still sleeping and before they leave for work for the day.
And that was done, she points out, not just to minimize the impact, the community impact, but also to protect the officers from these high visibility operations that actually can also put them in danger. And I think what Tom Homan is signaling is that they are going to go back to doing that kind of thing where they do their homework first before they knock on someone's door or knock down someone's door, as we've seen them do.
Yeah, thought Homan's press conference this morning was a masterclass, and it's obvious that the president made a smart decision in sending him there to reset this situation. I think no president wants to see chaos in any city for any reason. I mean, that's not good for the country. It's not good for a presidency. Homan has clearly already made a huge difference. He met with the local officials. This agreement that he has, apparently with the Attorney General Ellison, about working, to Ellie's point, with the county jails, that's one of the things the White House has been asking for, is some cooperation at the jails. This is clearly a step in the right direction. Now, as you pointed out, Abby, he's still very much an immigration hardliner, and even though they are going to prioritize people who have other criminal issues, he said if you're in the country illegally, you're never off the table. And so he was also still signaling to the president's supporters that, listen, we're not backing down on the president's priorities on illegal immigration. He also said today that he was very much aware of these organizations that are going on, these signal groups, these WhatsApp groups that are trying to organize the impeding of federal law enforcement. And he said he was very much looking into that. He was clearly very aware of that. I think that was good news. Overall, I agree with Ellie. This was clearly if you believe that having less chaos and more efficiency in government and more cooperation is good, today was clearly a great day.
I was going to ask you that because I feel like the last few weeks you've been defending some of the more aggressive tactics. Do you feel now that they were a mistake?
I don't feel sending federal law enforcement to enforce federal law was a mistake.
I'm talking about the tactics, how it's being done, not whether or not they are detaining people, but how they're doing it. The random stops, the roving patrols, the middle of the day knocking down of people's doors, maybe without a judicial warrant, especially in that one case where they actually were very wrong about who lived in that house. Do you feel like sitting here now, given that Homan is seeming to pull some of that back, that it was a mistake to go that far?
Well, I agree with what Homan said about that today. Nothing's perfect and everything can be improved. And if you look at the totality of it, they did arrest a great number of very, very bad people. They did get a lot of very, very violent, terrible people out of the community. And we've also seen a situation in Minneapolis that nobody wants to see. And if Tom Homan, who I trust a lot, says things can be improved and things can be better, I trust his word. So I think that's a good thing.
We're going to pause here. We have much more ahead when we come back from this quick break. A new CNN analysis of the video of Alex Preddy's death shows the actions of two officers in the moments before the shooting, how Tom Homan's new guidelines could change how officers interact with the public. Plus, under pressure, bipartisan calls rise for Kristi Noem to step down, how today's cabinet meeting shed some light inside the chaos in the Trump administration.